again. So instead of you sticking to like what you got you there, you're being greedy, you're wanting more, like you're wanting that same move over and over again, not understanding that it took time for this move to develop to get you that reward that you received.
Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to introduce to you our Black-owned business of the week, where we showcase quality Black-owned businesses for you to support every week. This week's business is JoParr Transport, co-owned by Terrell, Johnson, and Bracey Parr. At JoParr Transport, they pride themselves in offering reliable bulk material hauling in the Hampton Roads area. And JoParr Transport offers their clients safety and legal compliance expertise, hauling and heavy equipment experience, and unrivaled customer service. Remember, whether near or far, choose JoParr. As more of us look to attain financial independence and the ability to create generational wealth, more and more of us are drawn towards the rewarding yet arduous journey that is entrepreneurship. On this week's episode of the Infusion Breakdown Show, the Breakdown crew is joined by two very special guests, co-owners of JoParr Transport, Bracey Parr and Terrell Johnson, as we discuss some of the things that often go overlooked as it pertains to entrepreneurship, as well as deciding if entrepreneurship is for you. Let's see what we come up with.
So the question we have for today is entrepreneurship for you? Comment below, let us know your opinion. We also have timestamps in the description below as always. Be sure to check them out. Today's guests also include Bracey and Terrell, owners of JoParr Trucking and the Real and Black and White podcast.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Really been looking forward to this episode for a long time and collaborating with you guys in some capacity.
Yeah, us too.
So I guess I'll provide a little bit of a preface. So when we were coming up with topics for this current season, season 4, Dez and I both had explicitly stated in the past that we have interest in being entrepreneurs of the more traditional sort outside of what we currently do in terms of video and content creation. And Josh also operates in that realm too. But so entrepreneurship was one that I wanted to talk about. And so it's something that's always sounded good to me in terms of fitting my skills and interest. And as I've continued to grow and learn, it became more and more of a necessity to afford me the kind of life that I wanted to live. And so it's been driven by two truths ultimately. The first is there's a significant wealth gap that exists in the United States. I mean, you could break it down among demographics, but I think I'll just leave it at that. It's a significant wealth gap. But the other truism is that through your efforts, you can decrease this and your future immediate family will be set up for success and prosperity. And so with those two things in mind, that's why I say it's a necessity. I realized that it was something that sounded good, but now I realize that, okay, this is something that I must do. And around the time that I was starting this podcast with Josh and Dez, I was living with my homeboy Austin, and we took a crack at entrepreneurship under the banner of the Brogrammers. We were doing application development, and we actually released our first gaming app called Nimble Nimbus, which may still be on the App Store. But so ultimately, we lost momentum, focus has shifted, and I started to focus more on the podcast and the other things I had going on. But eventually I'd like to work with him in the future and revitalize the Brogrammers. So I guess that's just a little bit of background context and about how this episode came to be and my interest with that. Also, I've been inspired by those directly and indirectly around me, such as my grandfather, who I grew up watching him own his own landscaping business. Jay, who's also been a previous guest on the podcast here with his videography, and then his other business endeavors such as real estate and I think just real estate. Yeah. And then Emmett, we've had him on as a guest. And then this is girl on Twitter that I came across, Kumi Marie. She's really dope. She does Salesforce boot camps, IT boot camps, and she's really inspirational. And just seeing how she's grown and became so prevalent over the span of time that I've been following her. So with that being said, I think we can all acknowledge that being an entrepreneur is not easy, but it's also not impossible. And so I kind of wanted to start the discussion off with you guys and ask about some of the challenges that you feel entrepreneurs face, or some of the challenges that you found to be most proficient or prolific, excuse me.
I would say managing your time is the number one challenge for an entrepreneur, and knowing without having somebody else above you, someone who's experienced, someone who's part of like the management structure, who can tell you what to do every day. What should you be doing to grow your business, get new business, make sure you handle the customers that you already have. It's kind of every day is like a blank slate. And so knowing how to manage your time, knowing how to prioritize, I would say that would be like the number one challenge.
For me, I think the main thing is mentality, because I feel that a lot of people think that entrepreneurship is maybe like easy. I mean, it can be fun, but really managing the stress of it all and understanding that, like Bracey said, every day is a blank, slate. So you really have to go out and produce money for your company. So it's like if you don't, put in the footwork, there's not going to be any money coming in. I think we're usually at a 9 to 5. You just come in and you do a task, and then that's it. You do the task. You don't worry about any of the background stuff that goes on. From the beginning of the day to the end of the day, being an entrepreneur, and you control everything from operations to back office, it's a lot. So you mentally have to be prepared to be resilient, like when stuff happens throughout the day, and be able to problem solve and stuff like that on whim. So I think that was like the biggest obstacle for me. I just wasn't used to it, and it brought on a lot of stress, but I pushed through it, and it's worth it. If you can just remind yourself that it's worth it.
What you just said, Terrell, is kind of counterintuitive for most people, because a lot of what draws people's interest towards entrepreneurship is the fact of that they're their own boss, and they're kind of rebelling against the fact that somebody else is setting a schedule. But the thing is, there's still a schedule. You just have to set it. Otherwise, the business isn't going to be successful. So if you aren't able to adapt to that, that's indicative of you maybe not being able to be successful as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Being disciplined. I don't have to get up in the morning, but it's not going to be very productive for me. I'm going to be sad at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? If I sleep in, I didn't miss all this amount of money that I could have been if I would have got up like 2-3 hours earlier. So a lot of it is like a mentality. It's definitely not like just something you do like part-time, especially if it's your full-time source of income. You really have to be disciplined and, mentally.
What would you guys say as far as, in y'all's ventures, like what have been the biggest challenges?
So I'm going to take the freebie of, you said like the scheduling and time management portion out of it. I'm not going to just jump on the bandwagon with that. I'll say garnering support. And a lot of times you're forced to, or as it rightfully should be, you are your sole source of support when you first start out. And you have to be the engine that's driving whatever it is. So nothing's going to happen unless you do it. So really taking ownership of that and being constantly motivated throughout the highs and lows and working through that, because people eventually they will join bandwagon and get on board with it. But you have to give them some of the support, because no one's going to go as hard for you as you do. As I see what you guys with your JoParr merch. So that's a testament to that.
Sure.
Are those for sale, by the way?
Everything is for sale. Right? If you're entrepreneur, rule 1.
You actually said that on the episode that you guys did on your podcast about starting a business. You said everything is a sale.
Yeah,
pretty much. Every relationship. You're just selling yourself constantly. But I did want to hear from Desmond and Josh about, if y'all have done things, what did y'all think was hardest?
To actually go off of what Brian said, I do believe the support is definitely big, but what I kind of fall into is the consistency part, because I don't see the constant support. So, how you starting off, you don't see the constant support from the company. So it's kind of a little hard to be consistent. You're like, wait, am I doing the right thing? Am I just wasting time? Like, what's going on with this? So I think for me, it's really just the consistency part. But then when I see, like, I do movie reviews, so I take that as an entrepreneurship. So if I see like a good comment, that'll motivate me to go do it again. Like, oh, okay, I can go record. Let me go record and do something else. You know what I mean? But really, it's just the support. And then because of the lack of support from the beginning, I would say the consistency part is definitely the hardest thing for me.
Yeah, I can't say I necessarily have experienced that perspective of it. I think the hardest thing for me is fear of the unknown. Like, it's the fear of the unknown in the sense that any day you take off or any wrong decision that you make could be the last decision in regards to whatever that current venture is. So for me, I day trade as well. I have a full-time 9 to 5 at ADP, but I have the ability day trading to make my paycheck in a couple hours. So it's like managing greed, managing aspirations, managing just money itself has been like the biggest task for me, because it's like you have to keep going to be able to maintain it. And I'm not necessarily based on consumers purchasing something or quote unquote selling myself. Like I'm not able to offer a good or service in exchange for goods per se. So for me, it's just been the fear of the unknown, like trying my best not to make my day-to-day decisions become fear-based on losing everything or just making the wrong decisions for real. Like for the most part, when I told my dad, like, you know, I picked up day trading, and you know, people around me, like they're really supportive of it, because my dad is an entrepreneur himself. He owns a landscaping company. He's one of the guys that have done, you know, 20 plus years in the Navy, high ranking as far as his rank goes. Like he's been somebody that's been on the receiving end and the giving end of orders. And one thing that he's always tried to push is like just being your own boss. And you don't ever really understand it until you get older and you start going through the same things. And for me, I've always questioned like the reality that is the 9 to 5 system that we have. And it's like, I understand that I have the potential and the means to break that 9 to 5 cycle, but it's the fear of the unknown, like fear of all that pressure weighing down on you as far as every decision you make impacting multiple people around you. Like that's been my biggest struggle to overcome.
One thing I wanted to ask, I don't know if you guys said it or not, but how long have you guys been entrepreneurs?
We started the company in February of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. So not almost 3 years, like not quite yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
But thanks. To the fear of the unknown, I can relate to that as well, because when I was working a 9 to 5, I mean, it was kind of like one day I just like went into work and just decided, you know, like I'm tired of this, and I just committed myself, gave myself 90 days and completed what I needed to do prior to me leaving. And I just quit. But I can't say that I wasn't scared, because, you know, I was making decent money. And, you know, just to be clear, like JoParr really didn't make that much profit, probably like the first year and a half. So it was tough to like really stand firm on what I said I was gonna set out to do. And it was, you know, it was hard. Like we both had to, like, some days, you know, I'd be like, I don't know if we should just keep, you know, Bracey had to pick me up. Some days he'd be like, I don't know, like, you know, so I had to pick him up. Like it was literally a battle to stay consistent, to you know, really see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I can relate to that.
And I think, like, go ahead.
No.
Having an accountability partner, having a partner with any venture makes it more successful, because you have somebody to bounce ideas off of, you have somebody else to help do the work, pick you up when you're down. And I know a lot of solo entrepreneurs, the biggest thing is like building a team. It might just be you for a year, 2 years, but eventually, you know, any business, if you're not growing, you're dying. So, you know, you want to scale, you want to be able to provide more services, more goods, whatever it is. And I think that's a key element too, you know, not just going at it by yourself, but having somebody. It doesn't have to be necessarily somebody involved in your business, but somebody, your mom, your dad, your friend, brother, sister, whomever, to kind of keep you accountable to your definition. Almost like the gym, or really any goal in life. It's more gradual than anything. Because like he got his CDL at the company, which enabled him to, you know, be able to drive the trucks. So it's not just like washed our hands of 9 to 5 and said, you know, we're just going to start our own businesses. It's like we've learned skills at all the jobs we've worked at to be able to start, businesses to start building up assets, which is something I do want to get back to, because Brian, you did mention that at the beginning of the call about the wealth gap. And that's something that we talk about a lot.
I wanted to touch on something that Terrell had just mentioned too, and I think is often overlooked, and both of you are aware of that, but a lot of people have this preconceived notion that once you become an entrepreneur, it's like you just stop working your regular job and then you just start. But you mentioned that there was there's a transition period of 90 days where you planned that you were going to leave at this certain time, but you had a certain list of things you had to do, including the CDL certification and I'm assuming other things lead up to that. So I kind of want to know, what did that process look like, and how'd you structure that plan?
Well, basically in the beginning, like Bracey knew how to navigate through all the regulatory and paperwork requirements and stuff like that. So it was a lot easier to navigate that. So I had to figure out how I was going to be able to obtain, the right qualifications to be able to run the business on the operations side first without having to pay an employee, which would take away from the, the initial profits. So I just, used my resources that I had to me at the time. And, I went to my supervisor at the time and told him, like, look, I'm gonna get my CDL. Throughout that process, I asked them how much more they were going to pay me for my CDL, and it was like literally peanuts. It wasn't even worth me getting my CDL if I was going to plan on working for them. So I didn't say anything. I just went on about it, and I set a goal and said I was going to teach myself how to drive and obtain my license. And within 90-day period, I completed that. And the day I got my license was the day I put my 2 weeks in. So it was like, that was basically it, really. And then, we went into acquiring the equipment and everything that we need, and, basically taught myself. YouTube was a big help. Networking with other people who were in the field that we were going into, and picking their brains and stuff like that. And it helped. It was a huge learning curve that first year.
I know you guys might have touched this already, but how did you guys meet? Because it just seems so kind of funny. Like Bracey, from what Brian has said, you guys, or you and Brian, worked on the tech side of things as far as what it is that you guys do. And then Terrell, sounds like you work. Like, did you work in as far as like trucking goes, like at the port or something along those lines?
No, I was a foreman for a natural gas company. We installed the lines going from the main line to the houses, stuff like that. So it was a subcontractor for Columbia Gas of Virginia. But yeah, I did more like industrial, like blue collar work.
Yeah, that was perfect. That's what I was about to say.
How did we meet?
Oh, we met online, man. Him and I met online, and we became friends for a couple of years and started dating. And then we formed a business probably maybe 2 years after we started dating. Yeah. So
I'm assuming Brian didn't share that prior.
No. I mean, well,
no, I did.
So he doesn't. Well, I don't think he informed us how you guys met.
Okay.
Yeah. Like that's. Yeah, we're all open-minded here.
Funny.
That's all good with me. He didn't tell me guys how you like the business came to be. So that's what
okay. Yeah. I just got tired of working, and he was like, "Yeah, go for it." So
yeah, I had done some things before, some things that didn't work out, but so I knew how to form the LLC. I had worked for the FDA, so I could do all the regulatory stuff for the Department of Transportation. Like, we did everything in-house, accounting. I mean, yeah, it was up late at night with Google Sheets, but I mean, that's what it is. It's the sweat equity that you put into your business.
Question, do you guys feel you guys' challenges would still be the same if the partnership, but the entrepreneurship that you guys started with was instantly profitable? And that goes for Brian too. Like, he can answer the question too. would you have the same challenge like of support, Brian, with you was like, if the podcast was extremely popular off the back?
Give me a second to think about that.
Yeah, I think yes, because it's just certain things that's inevitable when you're starting out something that you've never done before. It's like a new journey. So a lot of stuff that we did, and I look back on it, it's like, there's no way I could have avoided that unless I had someone holding my hand to tell me like, you really shouldn't do that because of this. So it's like you had a lot of stuff you just had to learn along the way because a lot of people wouldn't help us. So it was a lot of the stuff I just had to, I didn't learn until I was kind of like in a jam, and I had to teach myself like that. So I think, yeah, a lot of the obstacles probably would have been easier to deal with and, overcome if we, the profits were there. But I think that's what made us believe in the company so much, because it's kind of like every time we got into a jam, when we thought there wasn't going to be a way out, like boom, immediately, oh, this is how we get the solution to this, and we move on to the next thing. So it definitely built us up, the resiliency I talked about earlier.
Gotcha.
I think, well, first, Bracey, did you want to answer that?
No, pretty much what I would have said too.
Okay, I think there would have been an additional set of challenges with what I said about support and how it would differ if we were successful off the bat, because I think what we've done over the past 3 years, we've built a network, and this one of the functions of the podcast is a networking tool in which we have multiple guests on. Most times we have 2 guests on that don't know each other. So it's like we have the opportunity to cross-pollinate and meet each other. And then it's, like I said on a few weeks ago, it's really dope when we see people who didn't know each other prior to being on with us link up or work on a project or just become friends and things like that. So I think we had the added benefit of that being a slower growth process. We really built a grassroots network of people who I consider to be close friends that I can rely on, and we support each other. And I feel like if we had been just overnight successful and immediately profitable from the podcast, just from that, not excluding the Brogrammers or anything like that, but just for the podcast, then I think it would have been more difficult to see who was genuine and who wasn't. Because when things are popular, that's when everyone wants to get on board with it. So I know who's been there from the start. I know people's true intentions for the most part, and I appreciate them.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because I want to know, what do you think?
No, I was thinking because I was thinking in my position, if I was extremely just profitable with my movie reviews right off the bat, I wouldn't have a problem with consistency, you know what I mean? So I was just thinking, but I do agree with you as far as there will be other set of challenges that will come up if I'm like totally popular right off the bat, like, like genuine people and stuff like that. So yeah, I know what you mean.
What would be the internal struggle though? Like, so I get like the genuine aspect from like a consumer perspective, but like, you don't feel like there would be like an internal struggle as well? Like, I feel like for me, if I was extremely profitable off the back, like to where I was consistently making the money that I have made within day trading, like, wouldn't you think there would be like a form of arrogance that comes with your skill rather than like a genuine appreciation for what you already know you can do?
I don't think so, because I feel like I'm a very humble person. So I don't think there will be a ton of arrogance. Like,
see, that's the thing. I'm a very humble person too, but greed gets the best of a lot of people in different ways. So that's why I'm saying, like, if you get nothing.
Maybe it's something you don't know until you get into that situation, but I don't think so. I don't think I would be like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think, like, man, get the fuck out of my way. Get the fucking push out the garage, nigga. I mean, I would be like that. Like, I don't think I would, you know? But yeah, I understand what you mean, internal struggle though. But I don't think I would have like a feeling of arrogance or being better than other people. I wouldn't go to other people's movie reviews online and be like, yo, this shit's ass. Like, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I don't think so. But I think it's also a situation, like, if you're in that situation, you'll know better about yourself, you know what I mean? But I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
Because I think some people are arrogant and don't really have much success to show at all, and it does come down to like who you are as a person. Like, are you going to take a victory and think that puts you above other people? Or are you just going to say, this is the product of hard work and so many people who have helped me? Like Brian and I worked for this amazing founder. His name is Carl Hewitt. He's based in the Outer Banks, and we both worked for Decisions, which is his no-code tool. And he would say, I don't know if you remember Brian at one of our town halls, everybody is an entrepreneur. If you work a 9 to 5, you're an entrepreneur with your time. You're giving up 8 hours a day for a certain paycheck. You're not building an asset really, because you don't get anything when you leave that job necessarily, except for the skills. But you are investing in yourself in a way. Everybody kind of is like an entrepreneur. And this guy, multi-millionaire, but so humble, so down to earth, serial entrepreneur, 5 companies in, but talk to anybody. And I think the humility aspect, it is easier to get a big head, like when you have a lot of success at first, but people have big heads and don't have like shit to show for it either. So it's like, I'd rather get a big head and have something successful. But yeah,
it's really a character issue. I feel like along the lines of last week's episode, where I may have mentioned the fact that I feel like communication skills and the way you handle conflict is an indicator of a person's true character. But in addition to that, success, that really shows you who someone is, how they behave when they get that success.
Yeah, it could come back to character. Because are you really? Because back to Tesla, are you really acting any different from how you would act? Like, you're not becoming a new person, are you? Just because you got success from the beginning? Maybe you was arrogant all along. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think my question, like when I say the internal struggle, I mean as far as like expectation of reality. Like, so from my perspective, like when we day trade, when we create a markup or we catch a move that is like once a month or once a week or things of that nature, like you kind of, you get satiated and you're wanting that same move over and over again. So instead of you sticking to like what got you there, you're being greedy, you're wanting more, like you're wanting that same move over and over again, not understanding that it took time for this move to develop to get you that reward that you received. So that's more or less what that question I'm pitching it from that perspective, because what I think of like the movie review is like, well, you pop off and you get 90,000 views your second video, and the next video you produce, like you have an expectation or a goal viewpoint that you're expecting, not necessarily that you feel that you're going to earn, but you're expecting it. So it's like the earn versus expectation internal dilemma that I'm more or less projecting. Because I think when I say arrogance, like we think of how we come off to other people, but it's like arrogance in your work. Like, is it truly deserved, or is it, one hit?
Do you have imposter syndrome? That's a serious question.
Yeah. No.
Do you guys ever feel like that? I feel like that sometimes, like an imposter. Like, is it really me doing this? Are we really making money? Like,
as far as arrogance, I don't know. It's like, I feel that I'm a humble person as well, but sometimes I like to pop my shit sometimes. So I think it's kind of like, me being my own cheerleader, because I know exactly where we were at with this company, when I wanted to give up, and then it's like to go outside sometimes and, look at all our equipment and how far we've come to, gaining knowledge and being able to navigate so smoothly on a day-to-day basis. I'd be proud of myself. So like, yeah, sometimes I to other people, like you said, it may look as arrogance, but it's really just that I'm proud of us, because it took a lot for us to get to where we're at right now. And in the beginning, we didn't have a lot of support. We did have some, but it was a lot of people who really didn't understand why would you want to quit, a job where you're making, $31 an hour to talk about, you're going to start a truck company or something. Like, why would you do that? Why is that necessary? They didn't really see the vision. So
right.
I don't know. Sometimes the arrogance is kind of warranted, because it's like, some people didn't believe in you or expect you to be where you at.
Yeah, and you guys have had a tremendous amount of growth. Just seeing from a I guess, a bystander standpoint, I remember when I had first seen the first ad on LinkedIn that Bracey had posted about JoParr trucking. And then I think I saw an update recently where you guys just purchased 3 more trucks. And you guys have some pretty secure contracts, and you guys have definitely earned the right to pop your shit, as you said. like you guys are legit and also inspirational as well.
Yeah, but we always try to give like the knowledge back though. Like everything is cyclical, you know, like so many people have helped us. It's like we try to put that back out there. When people ask us, you know, we freely share information. Somebody pulls up and is like, what are you doing with the trucks? Or somebody's like, how do you get started on Airbnb? You know, tell me about tech, tell me about low code. Like we share our information, you know, freely. Because we just think like a whole network got us to where we are. You know, like Carl would say, like you see a turtle on a fence post, it didn't get there by itself, right? Somebody had to put it up there. So
yeah.
You know, sometimes we feel like the turtle on the fence post.
So with all that being said, we kind of talked about a lot of the challenges that we face as entrepreneurs, and that entrepreneurs as a whole find themselves on the receiving end of. So at that point, I kind of want to talk about why even be an entrepreneur and get at the real heart of the question of deciding whether or not entrepreneurship is for you. So why?
For me, it was, all right. So for me, the real personal reason, I don't know if Bracey ever shared with y'all, but I was incarcerated for 5 years, and you know, was released in 2015 as a felon, and so a lot of my options were delayed. I got locked up at 19 years old, got released at 24. So when I came home, I really didn't have too much to really offer society because I didn't know anything. So I just, you know, went from like various jobs, and then finally got a break with a ex-friend of mine, got me a job at the gas company. I just kind of worked my way up from there. But it's kind of like once you get to a certain point, you're like maxed out. And I feel like your boss would never pay you enough to be his neighbor. So that kind of stuck with me as I was working my way up through this 9 to 5. I'm like, you know, yeah, I'm killing it. You know, I'm constantly getting raises, I'm getting promotions, but it's like, you do know that there's a cap, right? You know you're not going to replace, you know, your boss.
Yeah.
You know, it's people who've been here 20 years and you are in the same position they are. And so once I realized that, you know, my family, you know, our daughter, if I were to, something happen to me today, there would be nothing for me to leave, you know, my family, for them to still, you know, produce income off of, being that I'm gone. And it's like, you know, creating a generational wealth and being able to free up your time to be able to make money and not have to be hands-on with it is the ultimate goal. So I think that was like the biggest drive for me. It gave me a sense of freedom to not really be dependent on a lot of people telling me no because of things in my past that I did as a teenager. So it helped me, you know, break a lot of generational curses, you know, in my family as well. So.
And Josh and Des, feel free to answer this as well. But Bracey, did you want to share?
Really just to start generating passive income, to be able to have something that was an asset, you know, because we look at multiple things. You look at our businesses, like you would look at a piece of property or a piece of equipment. It's like, how can you leverage that thing to work for you, and you don't have to spend your time there, but it's just making money on its own. And that's really going to be the key to wealth in the future, because the pension system in the US, I mean, there's not going to be anything left for us. We're all paying into it constantly.
Yeah.
With our jobs. I mean, huge chunks of change from, you know, like I worked a salary job for nearly 10 years. I mean, we're not going to see that money. So it's like, you have to have a plan.
From a personal standpoint, so I said I kind of saw the generational aspect. So my grandfather, who I grew up seeing him be an entrepreneur in his own landscaping business, and he was somebody who didn't graduate high school. And then I saw my dad, who did graduate high school but didn't continue further. And he's been tremendously successful, again, based off his own merits of his own hard work. He's been a supervisor and worked his way up everywhere that he's ever been. And then so I want to keep the momentum going with me being a first generation college graduate, and then have something of consequence that I can pass down as well, just to keep the baton going. But there was a quote that I came across from Les Brown, and I've seen this for years. And it says that the graveyard is the richest place on earth because it is here you will find all the hopes and dreams that were never fulfilled, books that were never written, songs that were never sung, and the inventions that were never shared, the cures that were never discovered, all because someone was too afraid to take the first step, keep with the problem, or determined to carry out their dream. And that's kind of the biggest factor, is because I have so many ideas that I want to bring into fruition, and I feel like not doing that is a disservice. So that's why I said that entrepreneurship was always in line with my particular skill sets and interest.
Mm-hmm.
Love Les Brown, by the way. Yeah.
I haven't seen much of his work. I just remember that quote.
Yeah. His motivational speeches are really good.
I'm gonna take your word for it and immerse myself in some more of his stuff. Granted, I like that.
Des, you can go first, but can you repeat the question again, Brian?
So I was saying, why even bother being an entrepreneur? I mean, we talked about how difficult it was. So why would you want to do that?
Yeah, you can go, Des.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I kind of already touched on it a little bit. It was like, since a kid, like I've always questioned the 9-to-5 system. Like I said, my parents both went and did their time for, the country. My mom is still active duty Navy. She's like a small percentage of black captains that are one black and two women. So like she's very accomplished in what she's done. But for me, it's always been like a question mark over my head, like the why behind it. I think, like I said, as I've gotten older, I had, kid out of wedlock. So my son is turning 5, turns 5, well, actually just turned 4, turns 5 next year. Like, I just can't see myself giving so much time to a job that it does not afford me the time to be the parent that I want to be the individual that I want to be, and just live life on my own terms, like live life limitless. Like there's a very proficient trader named Q Banks, and he every Friday he releases Q tips. It kind of tells you like how you can manage your big days in the market, like the emotions that come with it, the mindset that comes with it. And then this past Friday he released what does living limitless look like to you. Like he said, picture it as far as like a video game, like in GTA. It's real life simulation. Like you expire to get the most money, so you buy the cars. You expire to get the most monies and complete these missions, which would be quote unquote goals, so you can buy the house that you want to buy in the game and all this stuff. It's like, imagine if you put that same energy that you do into video games, whether it be Call of Duty maxing out all your guns so you can get the camos you want to see, or GTA getting the money so you can buy the knockoff Bugatti that they have up there. Like if you put that energy into your into whatever your passion is, like you'll bear the fruits of your labor. It's like what he's kind of preaching is like success is just you learning from the multitude of mistakes that predated it. So for me, it's just me wanting to live on my own terms. Like I know Brian and Josh have heard it numerous times at this point throughout our 100+ podcast episodes, but it's like I've always said that when I die, I want Frank Sinatra's my way, like I did it my way, to play at my funeral. And going to work for somebody every day for the next 30+ years, that's just not my way. Like that's me living on somebody else's terms. Yeah. Like borrowed time, essentially.
Why be an entrepreneur? I think part of it is to be your own boss. I would say that, like, just to be your own boss. Because I feel like this generation definitely, they're like a no nonsense generation. Basically, they're not going to just accept anything. They're going to question everything. Basically, this generation. So I feel being your own boss is definitely a good start. And then I feel like there's more entrepreneurs that are happening now, like just whether it's small entrepreneurs, but I feel like there's definitely more. But I think the biggest thing is just be your own boss, so you can call the shots, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
And I mean, like, I wouldn't ever like knock, you know, like a salaried job, because like some things that you want to pursue, like I think about like scientists and like nurse, doctor, like things where you have to work in an organization for it to be effective. You know, teacher, professor, it's like certain things like you have to work as part of an organization. There's no alternative. But if there's something you can do solo, you can do with somebody else, like that is your passion, that you think you can do differently, it's like, try it. You know, you won't know until you try. And like the most famous entrepreneurs have failed like 100 times before they actually found that thing that made it money. And like even with JoParr, we started off doing car hauling, then we switched to doing like hauling out of the port, like 18-wheelers, and finally ended up on dump trucks. And dump trucks has been the most lucrative thing, but I mean, you got to be flexible and roll with the punches too. And that's something that I feel like not everybody's suited for, because a lot of people, they like the security of, I go to kindergarten, elementary, middle school, high school, college, get a job, you know, get this promotion, do my 401k, retire, see my grandkids and die. That's like they literally have their life planned out like that, you know? But if you can deal with the instability, like, and the insecurity, you can really do amazing things.
Yeah, I know for me, one of the other reasons too, I wanted to build assets. It's kind of like what Terrell said. And I know the book that Des got me introduced to, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like I ended up reading that. I'm still not even done with the book because I ended up going to a sociopath next door, and I'm almost done with that, and I'm gonna go back. But just reading that, just hear him talking about assets and things that you can accumulate, and the fact that a lot of people don't even do that at all. Like they don't know about assets at all. So just having like an extra part of assets like in your corner, I would say, is definitely good. It doesn't hurt even if you have a full-time job, you know what I mean? Because I have a full-time job. I'm an RBT. I work with kids with autism. So I do that, and I don't mind having like other stuff on the side. So,
yeah.
So I think, yeah, that's the biggest thing, like having the asset.
I want to circle back to a previous idea that we discussed briefly. Bracey, so you had mentioned on the episode that I touched on earlier of the podcast you guys have, The Real and Black and White, you had said that everything was a sale. Then earlier you said that with the shirts being the case. And so one thing that I feel like has allowed you to be tremendously successful, and anybody who actually knows Bracey, is his communication skills. He's excellent at networking. And so I kind of want to get your insight on what are some ways that people could become more effective at that and focus on that skill, because everything is a sale.
I like this question because I think it goes along with the what advice would you give your 18-year-old self when we were doing our icebreakers. And I would have told my 18-year-old self, like, just like, don't be afraid, like stop being a pussy. Like, cause I was just, when I at 18 and like college, I was just very much like, oh, I'm gonna get a fear of rejection, I guess. Not talking to a person, or like wanting to, but not raising my hand to ask a question in class, any of that stuff. And like with networking, you just gotta stick your hand out. And I mean, like, and say, hey, my name is whatever, what's your name? And it's like, you don't want to go in with the, what can I get? It's like, what can I give to? You know, like, I've got a wealth of knowledge, knowing that you have a wealth of knowledge in whatever it might be, your passions. And people love to talk about themselves. Yeah, I feel like I ramble a lot because I love to talk about myself, but like, people really love to talk about themselves. And I've been in so many tense situations because I'm really involved in like my local government too, that can just be diffused because you say, hey, Karen, I like your blouse. Where'd you get it? I mean, complete change. We could have just been yelling at each other, fighting about something, but I say I like your brooch or like something, you know, it's like, yeah. And then Karen totally does like a change, you know? So like, just ask people about themselves, and they love to talk about themselves.
For me, I think, like Bracey said, one of the main things is when networking, try to always see what you can offer or bring to the table rather than just trying to get something from the person. So like, for example, when within that 3-month process, that 90 days I gave myself before I was going to quit my job, I was working out of town for the company, and we just so happened to be working out of town near a car auction, which was the lane that we were going into initially for car hauling. So I would casually just stop by where the haulers were at and were loading up, and I would just walk around and I would pick people and just ask them questions about what they were doing. Why do you have to, load the car this way? What would be the best, truck to buy? What would be the best trailer to buy? How do you all get your work? But I ended up stumbling across a guy who was from Hampton Roads. And I told him, I said, hey, how often do you come up here to the auction? He was like, man, I'm up here, every other day. I said, well, would you mind me like shadowing you when you come up here, and I'll help you for free, like to load the cars, get your straps or whatever the case. And he was like, yeah, I don't care. You just meet me here at the auction. So I did that for maybe a week or two, and I gained so much knowledge from him allowing me just to follow him around the auction, to learn how to search for the cars, loading them on the trailer properly. And it really helped. I mean, he probably helped us for our first maybe 4 to 5 months in business. So like Bracey said, you can't be scared to just ask, because you never know what it's going to turn into. So, and that was a big thing for me, because I'm Bracey's the extrovert and I'm the introvert. But when money is involved and you really want to accomplish something, I got to put my pride aside and just ask for help and for the knowledge that you want, because there's nowhere else you can go and read and get it. So that was the biggest thing for me when it comes to communication.
I really like what you were saying about, Bracey, when you were essentially saying just taking the risk and putting your hand out there, extending, and hi, my name is, and thinking about just the tenure that we have with the podcast here and working with different individuals across. We've had graphic designers, we've had people who were musicians, we've had people who were other entrepreneurs, we have vloggers, like people from all ends of the entrepreneurial spectrum, like anything you could think of. They've had even the sisters, Christina and Aaron Walden, who make the tea that I drink all the time. And they've been on. And so just thinking back when I was talking to people for guests, no one has ever said no. Everyone has always been willing to participate and join the network of this crazy thing that we have called the Infusion Breakdown Show, in which we talk about questions every week. But that's just a testament to the willingness of people to help and to partner with you. So, I mean, it could be intimidating, especially when you're starting out. And when I was thinking about exactly how I met the Walden sisters, I had just told myself I'm going to go to this event they're having. And I just happened to go there and met them. They were really cool people. We recorded an episode together, and I've been buying tea from them ever since. It was just a done deal, and plan on having them on in the future again. But it's just really overcoming any kind of fears you have about meeting people. I can personally say that you're 100% right, Bracey, and I've put that in practice with great success. So there was another question I wanted to ask you guys, and Josh and Des, this also applies to you as well. So how do you select a good business partner? And I'm thinking about this question after I watched the Bob Ross documentary about Bob Ross and the KOWALSKIS. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that. I know Terrell and Bracey haven't. Have you, Josh or Des? Okay, ultimately it was, there was a bisection of the business. Bob Ross, he was more in charge of the actual illustration and the painting and all that, like the hands-on section. But the KOWALSKIS, they were in charge of the business operations and contacting the distributors and that kind of stuff, the legalities. And so ultimately they were able to get Bob Ross's name after he died and own everything. So his son, Steve Ross, does not see any of the profits. And this is they like multiple millions a year off of just his namesake. And so off the back of that, I was thinking about, okay, if Bob knew that things were going to turn out like that, I don't think he would have partnered with them. And so again, I ask, and for you guys too, Josh and Des, about, I guess you can think about working with myself and the other one of you, and then any other business endeavors that you guys have been a part of. But how do you go about selecting a good business partner?
For me, I just felt that me and Bracey didn't really agree on or share the same interest in transportation per se,
Mm-hmm.
but we both shared the same interest in creating an asset that's going to be beneficial to our family and creating, generational wealth and passive income. So, trucking was just one avenue to reach that goal. So that's how we both were committed to making sure we see it through, and hoping that the business will be successful. I feel like if you partner with someone who are in it for the wrong reasons, then that's how you get to those situations where, the documentary that you just quoted, that, they do things in the end when it's not going to be beneficial to everybody. That's when like kind of greed and stuff like comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely got to trust the person that you want to go into whatever endeavor it is.
I think you got to choose somebody who compliments you, and not compliment with the I, but compliment with the E. Like someone who, like, yin and yang you. White collar, blue collar kind of skills that we had, regulatory, accounting, information technology, all that sort of stuff. But I don't have my CDL license. Like, I can't change the oil of my own car. That's kind of shitty to admit, like on camera and stuff. And I'll give a shout out to Registrar Corp, which was my first like big boy job. There were two founders there. I mean, one of them could sell shit to a toilet. The other one was, a mad genius coming up with all the ideas that then would be implemented. So one was more like the intellect and one was more the implement. And they were just a perfect pair. And it's like, you gotta have that. You gotta have like a well-rounded organization. But I do think at the same time that it is possible for a solo entrepreneur, as long as they as a person have that well-roundedness to be able to operate effectively.
And even then, a solo entrepreneur isn't always a solo entrepreneur, if you get what I'm saying. Like, you may not be in a formal business with someone, but like you said earlier, with having the people in your life you consult with, they're by extension part of the network.
Yeah.
Could you guys ever see yourselves doing business with someone in your family? Any one of you guys? Because this is traditionally I've heard like it's a bad idea to have mixed family and business. But there was an interesting idea, and I can't remember who exactly said this, but it was on a podcast that I listened to recently, or a YouTube video or something like that. But they said that's only a bad idea in a dysfunctional family. If your family's dysfunctional, it's definitely a bad idea. But if you have a stable family that has a strong foundation, then that's where you ideally would like to keep the wealth. You want to build that up for yourself and keep it insular to the family. And so, do you have more of a traditional mindset, or could you see yourself working with a relative?
Yeah, we have done business with family members. In the beginning, when we were doing the car hauling, our dispatcher was, a family member of mine. And then now, the driver is, a brother. So it just has to be, like you said, it has to be the right family member, and they have to understand to be able to separate the two, when you're conducting business. We're business partners, employees, teammates, or whatever the case may be. When we're under the JoParr banner, and then, you know, we're family after hours, you know, for lack of a better word. So I think it's possible, but definitely have to hand pick them because it can go left. I done seen it a lot. So it's, yeah, but it's possible. I think it's possible. And I agree. I think you should try to do business with family as much as possible to keep the wealth, like you said, within the family tree. I feel like that's how you build up, you know, those big giant mega companies that, you know, the people who found it have been gone for, you know, 20, 30 years and the company still reigns. So I think that, you know, that's appealing to me.
I mean, at that point, it kind of transcends generational wealth and becomes a dynasty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the Walton family.
Yeah. Josh or Des, do you guys have any apprehension about working with relatives?
No, I would work with my family. That's fine. Me and my family actually talked about starting a business a while ago. But as far as picking an actual business partner, I think it goes with the combination of picking a person with great character, while also picking someone who is as hungry or is hungrier than you, I feel. And I feel that character part really comes into play really a lot. Like when I was talking to you, Brian, like no matter what, I know you're a good moral person. Same with Des. Like I know you guys, no matter what, you're gonna put morals first, hopefully. Not playing. So I know that, you know what I mean? So that's why that's really the biggest thing, picking someone with great character, you know?
Are you in agreement or go ahead?
Yeah, no, I think you. Did you want to answer that question real quick, Josh? He's asking were you in agreement.
No, I was gonna ask.
Yeah. Oh shit, my fault. Nah, so for me, like I guess you could say my first job was, well, technically not my first job, but my first job in the States was working for my dad with his landscaping company, and I think that, I mean, it was a great experience. It's something that I was really young at the time, so I didn't necessarily get to understand like what I was supposed to be learning. But hindsight is always 20/20, and you see all the small things that, you know, he was trying to instill in me during that time frame. As far as the like what I go in, like picking I think you said like the yin and yang aspect that Bracey was mentioning. I think, you know, that's us in the T. I think we're three separate people. I think if you want to put it this way, like Josh and I at times can like provide very left field ideas that kind of would throw you for a loop, and then you provide the kind of like that networking component that they were speaking on early, to where you're not afraid to go out to these functions that may not be, you know, Josh or I seen, and get somebody on the podcast. Like for the most part, people that we've never met have been, you know, at a, you know, that have came from your networking, whereas for me it's been like people that I already know, like close friends or things that nature. Like, yeah, we got a podcast, come on, hop on. And then it's like you actually like take the initiative to go out and find people that we can learn from. Like I think this is honestly, you know, however many minutes into it, I've learned more from this podcast than the previous 100, because it's something that I've hold so, you know, near and dear to my heart, as far as like wanting to actually break cycles and, you know, curses and things of that nature, everything that we've said thus far. So I think we kind of have like the answer to our own question right here. I think, is there more that we could do to, you know, be better at what it is we do? Of course, but we all want to be successful in our own, you know, role. Like I love the podcast, but I also understand that my bread and butter would be day trading. How do I mix the two? How can I be an asset to, you know, the podcast while also making sure that, you know, all my bases are covered? So, yeah, I think we do a good job of like being the answer to your question, as far as, you know, having somebody that can counter what your weaknesses are. And for you, like you're the one that can go out and get the people that we can learn from.
It's funny because Terrell, you mentioned, and then we had a guest previously who also mentioned, if that isn't your skill set, this was Sherman from the podcast episode. He said, like, if you don't naturally have those skills and you're not naturally good at talking to people or extroverted, then you have to work for it. And that's something to where I'm right on the, I'm more introverted than extroverted. Like I said, I taken the test and it's like 51-49, but it's still something that requires a tremendous amount of effort, and something that I have to be conscious of when making, when doing that in public and increasing the network, and just I see ultimately the benefits of it outweigh the cons. So that makes it a lot easier for me. Do you guys have any more questions that you want to post to the group?
Yeah, I think this is like the most important one, to be honest, because in my like field of what I'm into, the one thing that my mentor and I always talk about is if we could have done anything different in regards to us getting into day trading or investing or anything like that, what could we have done? And our response was get a mentor sooner, because the mentor is able to paint that picture for everything that you're going to experience during your journey, whether it be the high days, the low days, the greedy moments, the moments where you just need to take everything in and be grateful for what it is that you're doing. So as people who are, I mean, you guys aren't, I wouldn't say necessarily the first, but I think you guys provide us like the most insight as far as entrepreneurship. What would be the greatest advice that you could give to an upcoming entrepreneur as far as like to, what's the word I want to say? Expedite their curve, their learning curve.
I like what you said, honestly, about getting a mentor early in the game. I think that's been super helpful for us. So, we did the car hauling, and then we did the 18-wheelers, but, with the dump trucks, I was kind of like went into it in the blind, and I'm not gonna get into the backstory about how I met this person, but basically I became friends with this person after a business deal, and he previously owned a dump truck company, for about 20 years, KB and Strong, and from the time that I met him up until today, I could always call him for any question that I had. He never got exasperated with me or tired of me calling. It was always love, and he wanted to help me learn, basically. And it's been super helpful. It's been super helpful because I know that's the toughest thing to do when you're starting. You don't want to ask anybody for help, or you, like Bracey said, the fear of rejection, but it's really necessary because nobody got anywhere without some type of guidance. So I don't think it's a bad thing. And I think society like makes it like everybody wants to get to the top of the mountain and say like, nobody helped me climb this mountain. I got to the top of the mountain on my own, when it's it's really physically not possible. Like somebody had to sell you your gear, your hiking gear, to get to the top of the mountain. Like everybody played their part along the way. So I think having a mentor will really help you save a lot of time and a lot of money. Seriously.
I would say that my biggest piece of advice would be a piece of advice my dad gave me like years ago, even before we started JoParr, when I was doing some other things. Don't be afraid of debt. Like, they are giving money away, such low interest rates. Inflation is so high, especially now. But even, a couple of years ago, this would hold true. Like, debt can be your friend. So if you have to go into debt to acquire an asset the asset will bring in more money per month or per whatever period than your payment is on that, that's what is cash flow. And that cash flow, rich dad, poor dad, I mean, that's the basis of you building assets until you own them outright. But if you don't start now, young, we'll own our trucks outright in 3-4 years, and they'll be making even more money per month. But I mean, Terrell will tell you, I was like nervous about like, oh, we're really gonna go get a $60,000 loan? Like, I don't know about that. Oh, are we really gonna apply for the PPP, like, and get out more debt and everything? And it's like, yeah, at a 1 point whatever interest rate, it's basically free money. And so like, when you're starting a business, you can't skimp. You have to, like, you can't cut corners. Like, if you needed a piece of equipment for whatever your business is, that piece of equipment could be a truck, could be a computer, it could be a microphone. Like, if you have to incur a little debt, but you know you can make more money than the debt service, just do it.
Don't go into debt without a plan, though, right?
Right. Don't
Okay.
go into debt without knowing that you can service the debt. Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, when you first, I was like, wait, go to debt. Oh, no. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
you gotta have a plan.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Anything else you guys have? Or did you want to answer, Brian? Did you have any advice?
I mean, any advice that I would be giving would be less of not have the gravity of what Terrell and Bracey just said.
Okay.
And I would just be reinstating what was said earlier.
We'll share it anyway.
Okay, so what if I had to, I would really put emphasis on being really careful who you work with, having discernment when it comes down to it. Because like Josh, you said earlier about the character, and that really will dictate how things will play out when times are tough. Because like I said earlier, that's ultimately going to dictate how things really play out when it comes to a working team dynamic. Like I can trust you to understand that you aren't going to do any kind of sneaky sideways type of stuff just because of, I've known you for since 2013 now at this point. And then Dez, it took some time to know him better, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt and trust him just as much because, through association, he was a good person that you knew from past experience of working with. And we built something. We talked about expanding the podcast, having more people. And ultimately, I was against it just because it would require us to align more schedules, which would be more difficult. And then it would also require us to go through that process again. And so to go through a reevaluation period. And I'm not going to say never, but I would certainly work with other people in other capacities, but those are just some of the additional challenges that I don't have to worry about with these guys. And I would say that if you are looking for any kind of business venture or partnership that you work with people, character is of the utmost importance.
Sounds good. All right. At the end of the podcast, we usually have Des give some type of recommendation. 2 weeks in a row, he gave like a hike. He gave watch a sunset. He do a book, album, just whatever he's feeling. You have a recommendation, Des?
Nah, typically when we have guests, I always extend the courtesy to them because, like I told, we've been 100 plus episodes into this. Eventually, I'm gonna run out of recommendations. So we always want to hear what. Like I said, this is one of my favorite podcasts, if not the most insightful one we've had thus far. So I want to extend that courtesy to you guys.
Yeah, it could be any recommendation. You can have an album if you want. It don't matter.
Yeah. Or words of encouragement. Yeah, words of encouragement as well.
Well, a book that helped me with my mentality that I spoke on in the beginning about entrepreneurship is by author Stephen Covey. It's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I feel like I had a serious paradigm shift when I read that book. And I would encourage anyone who wants to tap into a higher thinking and perspective of life, I would encourage them to read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It's a great read, I think.
Brian has it right there.
Yeah, this is my third time going through it.
Yeah. I have the audiobook of it. I just haven't finished it. I don't think audiobooks are for me, man. It's so easy to get sidetracked with it, but yeah, I definitely have.
It's good in the car. Like I listen to them in the car. Like they're the best in the car. Like I can't just sit in my bed and just do it because I'm gonna be ended up doing it. In the car, yeah, this is the best time. But all right though, yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out too. But if you guys like the discussion, don't forget to hit the like button. We're gonna see you guys next week. Peace.
But while you're here, be sure to check out other great content from the Breakdown crew, including previous episodes of the podcast, Joshua versus Movies, Joshua versus Music, and of course, haven't forgotten about my plant lovers, Feel the Love. Just check out this begonia.